Prigozhin is back. Yeah, he's actually back. I'm not joking around. You guys remember a few weeks ago there was the Wagner coup or mutiny, right? I mean, they made it sound like a coup in the West. The original plan was that Prigozhin doesn't go to jail. The charges are dropped, but he has to go. He's exiled from Russia and has to go to Belarus. And apparently he didn't like it in Belarus. Now he's back in Russia. And he had a meeting with Putin. They had a 3-hour meeting. I wish I were making this up. It's actually real. This is real. They had such a falling out. It was such a bad breakup. I didn't think that they would make up so soon, but, it's real. So they had a 3-hour meeting on June 29th. It's like 5 days after the so-called coup, right? On June 24th. They had 35 people with, not just Prigozhin and Putin. So I'm saying 35 people in the discussion, various commanders of Wagner units and so on. And here's Lukashenko saying that actually, he's back in St. Petersburg, right? So Prigozhin is back in St. Petersburg.
As for Yevgeny Viktorovich Prigozhin, he is in St. Petersburg. Where is he this morning? He might travel to Moscow or he might be elsewhere, but he's not on Belarus's territory. I'm not concerned in any way that a specific number of these fighters will be deployed in Belarus. Moreover, they will be deployed under certain conditions. The main condition is that if I need to use this unit to defend our country if they are here, they will be used momentously in any direction. Belarus will use their experience.
Not bad, Mr. President. Got your own private army now, huh? Here's Prigozhin.
Готовимся. Еще у нас остается 5 июня мы вышли, 5 августа пока по прогнозам ЧВК «Вагнер» в полной боевой готовности дальше сможет выполнять те задачи, которые поставлены.
So, by the sounds of it, by the looks of it, he's going to be deploying Wagner again in August, beginning August. So, a few points here. Originally, they made it sound like, well, Wagner is trying to dethrone Putin. They're trying to oust him, and Prigozhin is going to take power. And you remember this line they kept repeating? Oh my God, he's just like 200 miles from Moscow. He's just a few hours away. They were in Rostov, right? So yes, obviously, I mean, the guy was there and he took some troops with him, but they made it sound like, he's going to invade the Kremlin or something. And they exaggerated it. No one knew what the hell was happening. No one knew what the hell was happening. But this was a great subject to rile people up with and waste their time with. And, I told you guys that there are various theories about what's going on. And one of them was that it's a PSYOP, right? So a PSYOP is a psychological operation. It means that they're trying to screw with your mind. Okay? PSYOP can be anything. It can be from, Huey helicopters blasting, Wagner, incidentally, the composer, on a Vietnamese village, or, extremely loud, or something like this. So even until now, we're not 100% sure, but some people think that, this was all planned. It was executed on purpose to make it look like Russia was unstable, that, Prigozhin was posing some kind of threat, and that Wagner is out of the game. Why? Because then you make the Americans think and NATO think that Wagner is gone. Now they can poke a hole in outside and around Bakhmut, which they had recently taken, etc. Right? So these are just speculation. The thing is, though, that when Putin did those 2 videos, right? The condemnation is real. I mean, you could tell he was pretty angry, right? The fact that he's angry, though, does not mean that he was necessarily feeling threatened or that, Prigozhin had any kind of hope to even take over. Remember, Putin is very popular in Russia. Not with everyone, but with most people. Prigozhin does not have the political capital that Putin has. Okay, I mean, this is a ridiculous thing to even entertain. But for those morons and in Western media who really thought this is possible, no, it's not. Even if you want to talk about numbers, I mean, yeah, 25,000 is a formidable private army. Is it the Russian army? No. I'm not saying that Wagner fighters are worse or better. They fight together. They fight. They undergo and embark on the same military tasks, one like the other. So it's just just in terms of numbers. I mean, this is ridiculous to even talk about. I will show you one thing. This is Prigozhin's home. Okay, so they raided and searched his mansion. Okay, and then posted videos of it. There were some other photos as well of his house. They found, some weapons, AK-47s. There was more money, some bulletproof vests and so on. The reason that they did this, I think, and I'm just speculating, Putin had to neuter Prigozhin. He had to cut his balls off to a certain extent. This is humiliating, having your house searched and then filmed and posted online. It's humiliating, but I suppose it is, in Prigozhin's case, it's better than having those charges or being exiled. Okay, after all, he has something that Putin needs and wants, and that's Wagner, because Wagner play a very important role. To this day. We're in July 2023. What's the longest battle of the Ukraine war? It's Bakhmut. So that's his victory. It's Wagner's victory. And like I said, they work as one, but nevertheless. So it would just from a pragmatic point of view, it would be stupid to throw all of that away. Now keep in mind, there was a very clear, it was not an ask. It was a demand. It was a demand. Putin demanded that all of these Wagner fighters sign contracts integrating all of them into the conventional, regular Russian armed forces. They can also work in other law enforcement agencies or authorities. Or they can go home, or they can go to Belarus. He gave them options. Now, obviously, after this talk that they had, and from what Prigozhin is saying, it looks like Wagner will operate as it as it did work, because he specifically says Wagner PMC in full combat readiness. Okay, so I don't know until August. As you can see, as you see, everything can change one day to the next. But as of now, it seems like they won't all have to integrate into the Russian armed forces. And I mean, either way, it's good. The advantage of having all of them as Wagner was is that they know each other. They have a certain command, a chain of command and structure that they are used to and familiar with. And then the other advantage of having them integrate into the conventional Russian armed forces is to have the experience and training brought into and assimilated with the Russian armed forces. But again, they're working together anyway. So it's a win-win at this point. I think Putin is being pragmatic. Maybe some people have different views of what he should have done, but I think if we talk about the media coverage, it was just abysmal, so abysmal in the West. It was just like full of what they were doing was speculating and then and attributing as fact when it was not fact. They were exaggerating the whole thing. It was just pathetic. They had no idea what they're talking about. And especially in a situation like that, no one knows what the hell is happening. No one. Even Putin and Prigozhin. I mean, maybe Putin, I think we should certainly, he is the president after all and has different resources at his disposal. I think even Prigozhin didn't know what the hell was going to happen. I can assure you that. This guy over here, Dugin, he's a very famous philosopher in Russia, and and a friend of Putin's. They assassinated his daughter last year. So the Ukrainians, the SBU, assassinated his daughter. I don't know if they were going after him or trying to hurt him the other way, but in any case, he kind of posted a few points here about his thoughts regarding this whole Wagner coup, so-called coup. It was not a coup. Anyway, he said, I'll try and read you some of this. I mean, I don't read Russian, so forgive me. I have to use Google Translator, but or Twitter Translator. But anyway, I'll put it up on the screen for you in a second. In essence, he was saying that it's important in moments like that. He's speaking from a Russian point of view. For Russians, he was making a few points that this is important. The meeting he had is important in regards to the history of military mutiny. One thing that I find funny and I like to bring up is Roman military mutiny. When it was occupied by the Romans, when Britain was occupied by the Rome, I think you had 30,000, about 30,000 Roman troops stationed there. Its biggest military outpost, because they couldn't even conquer all of it. So it was so big that I think on two occasions you had two Roman generals, right? So who took the whole army and just tried sailing all the way to Rome and commit, and seizing power. You got to give them credit. It's a good try. It's a nice attempt. No internet back then, no news, no satellite. You don't know what the hell is coming, but they failed. In any case, this is something, my point here is that this goes back many millennia. It's nothing new. So he says that from a Russian point of view, it was good to support Putin in a critical situation, right? And that it was, the right thing to do to condemn the rebellion. And he also says, he argues in favor of Prigozhin and says that his positions should also be taken seriously, right? And a number of his demands, because remember, the thing that Prigozhin was saying is that, well, you're not supplying us enough. And even then, some people still, to this day, still think that itself was a psyop, right? So he was in Bakhmut. He's filming these rants that he does. This guy's a comedian. He's a better one than Zelensky. Just yelling like, "Where's the fucking ammo? Where's the fucking ammo? We need help," and that this was just an attempt to fool NATO and the Ukrainians into thinking this is a weak spot, right? Because when you have a weak spot, you take advantage, you send troops there, to grab it, and then you find out it's a trap, right? It's not if it really was a psyop, it's very good it's a good try, and either way they won, right? But in any case, going back to what Dugin is saying here, and he says it's wrong to rush to tear Wagner to shreds, especially for those who supported them just before. And that's something you saw as well. You had some people who were like pro-Wagner, really love what they're doing and giving them credit for Bakhmut, and then the next day, oh my God, screw. And he talks here about patriotism and so on. And, his point here is that both the people fighting in Wagner and the conventional armed forces are all patriots. And, you should maintain the unit, the cohesive Russian unit. Now, I know that Dugin, especially, as a philosopher and a Russian one, he's speaking from a Russian point of view. But he makes some excellent points here that can be applied in any situation, okay? Or let's say generally, okay? Not everyone, but in many situations. One example, you can look at what's happening with and again, this is just an analogy, okay? So there's a difference between a comparison and an analogy. If you look at the situation in Syria right now, I mean, just to list them all it's too long. But if you just list or try and list the number of internal and external enemies that you have in Syria or attacking Syria, it's a lot. The Israelis, all right, NATO, that whether that's Turkey or and the United States, both of them. Then you have all the terrorist groups, right? You got Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. You got the Kurdish SDF, which is actually it should be in the same. Well, they're in the same place as the Americans, but yes, it's its own thing. But again, I think that's they're we can't compare them to ISIS. But nevertheless, they challenge. They want to carve out all the oil and make it a new country. So, Saudi Arabia is not an enemy anymore. Mended ties. But Qatar certainly still on bad terms. When you allow in this situation where you have chaos, right? Because he's talking about chaos. It's not a mutiny, although and that's actually one. The Free Syrian Army is another one on the list, right? But Free Syrian Army soon turned out to be Al Qaeda. I mean, it's more of a myth. Like they tried to make it seem more moderate, quote unquote, than what it really was. When you have all of these problems, it adds up. When you allow, for example, in the case of the Kurdish militias working with the Americans in Syria, this helps the Americans with their sanctions even more because now they're stealing the oil. And so by giving in to the chaos, now you've made the situation much worse. The Russians, they're also facing an external enemy, but again, it's a different beast. The situation is different, but nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact you need to have some kind of unity. Now, you can zoom out of Syria and you can look at this as the entire Arab world. You can look at, whether we're talking about Syria, Palestine, Iraq, Egypt, Morocco. I mean, all of these countries, if you put them together, they would have a much easier time dealing with neo-colonialism. Africa, same thing. If you had Pan-Africanism, you'd have a much easier time dealing with the external threat, with neo-colonialism. Okay, so here Russia is also dealing with an external threat, and I know that's not what they want you to think, but that is the case. You have an external threat. And just because the battlefield is in Ukraine, I mean, it's still on Russia's borders. It's still an external threat that has never really gone away since decades. So by giving in to one side or the other, whether it's Wagner and Prigozhin or whether it's... but again, I don't like to use the term sides because they're really on the same side here. What Dugin is trying to say, his point here is that you should maintain the cohesive unit. That way, you would have made it much easier for NATO to exploit, much easier for Ukraine, and so on. You should go and read the piece that he wrote if you can. But I just wanted to, just the points that he had here, outline those for you.